All right, Nick, you got an opening? Are you going to speak English this time, or?
Yeah, people say being an entrepreneur is hard work, and I think it exhausted Paul just talking to all these young entrepreneurs. So
Yeah, he didn't even show up. But when I was in college, you had like 10 minutes and then you could leave if the professor wasn't there or something like that. And it's 9 minutes, so I feel like we're covered.
I think what we should do is have our first entrepreneurial lesson be the importance of being on time
Exactly.
to big meetings. But I love having this series. I'm so excited about it. It is kind of a natural progression from like everything we did last year being the machine shop MBA. And now it's like, okay, we've graduated and let's start our business, right? And it's really exciting to talk to people who have done that. And, especially young founders, can't get enough of them in our space. There's such a need for a new influx of youth and energy, and we're bringing it.
Yeah, and I mean, so far the stories have just been so good. I mean, I love an entrepreneurial story. I love it even more when, oh my gosh, there's Paul.
Oh, look who shows up. Paul, we were just talking about the importance of being on time to big meetings for young entrepreneurs.
That's a really important point, Nick. I'm glad you brought it up, and I'm glad I model that every single time, all day long, every day.
No, actually, you did pop in at a perfect time because, we were just about to introduce our guest. But Mike, you were in the middle of making a point.
Well, I don't even remember now.
All right, let's just introduce.
Let's just move on.
Yeah. Our guest today is Walter Peters. He is the entrepreneur and owner behind MW Machine Company. And you're also still a machinist at Central Metal Fabricators. Is that correct, Walter?
Yeah, that is correct. Doing both.
Awesome. Doing two jobs at once. The entrepreneurial way.
Yeah, it's the time to do it now. I don't think I'll get away with this for much longer. So it's do it now before I have children and get married and all that stuff.
Yeah. Before you have 5 kids like me.
Yeah.
So, Walter, we always kind of start, like, what's the origin for you? How did you first get excited about machining and manufacturing, and kind of take us all the way back to when Walter Peters was a young boy thinking, what do I want to do when I grow up? And it's probably make machined parts, right? Like we all did.
No, it's funny. I'm the first one in my family to really be involved in any kind of metalworking or manufacturing. So my father he's a carpenter and a furniture maker, and it's funny, he's one of the original guys to start making woodworking YouTube videos. So I was probably in like middle school when his channel really started to like pick up, and it was like a full-time gig for him. So I always grew up just, being around things that were being made, kind of in a creative setting. So I always liked making things, and how I got into it was I was actually a video guy. I went to school for video. And, when COVID happened, it was really tough to get an internship anywhere. And I just went to the head of the video department. I think it was a junior in college at the time. And I was like, hey, my father has a pretty substantial YouTube channel. It's a real thing. You can look it up. It's got real numbers behind it. Like, if I go and work for him for a summer, will you, credit me the credits I need for the internship? And they totally went for it. So through that summer, I was working with my father, doing a lot of the editing for his stuff. And that got me really into the shop and got me into woodworking. So that was my start. I was kind of a furniture maker, cabinet maker first. I ended up going back to school for that last year. And coincidentally, the university I went to built a brand new shop that was like a half wood shop, half metal shop. So I had, at that point, totally had the bug for just making things. And I ended up taking like an intro to sculpture class, and that basically got me into the shop. And the head of that department saw that I was, really putting a lot of time in, and he just was like, "Hey, man, like, you can make whatever you want in here. You can come in here whenever you want. I'm just so happy to see someone using the actual space and like take it seriously." So I just worked my whole senior year of college in that shop, sometimes 20, 30 hours a week, just like, they'd buy me material, I was welding, making furniture, really getting into 3D printing. So when I graduated college, I had a job at a small marketing company. And after like 2 months, and at the whole time too, I was freelancing. I've always been into business, so I was a big freelance photo video guy. And after getting that job at that marketing company, after like 2 months, I was like, I got to get back into like, I just got to do what I want to do. I don't want to make these videos anymore. A lot of like, what people don't understand is like with video work too, it's a lot of like entertaining people. So if you go and you shoot a wedding or you shoot any kind of event recap for a small business or whatever, a lot of it is showing up somewhere, lugging a lot of gear around, and really being kind of stuck with strangers. And after doing that for so long, I was like, man, the idea of just being isolated in a shop, just making things and doing cool stuff is so much more appealing. So I quit that job, started working in a cabinet shop. It's a cool experience, learned a lot there, but I was pretty green. So mostly I was muscle. And that was a tough job. And I worked with some real old school cabinet guys that were pretty rough. So I was there for about 3 months and I was like, I'm gonna get hurt here. It's a pretty crazy place. And I was like, I'm just not where I want to be. And I
Get
ended
hurt
up
by the work or by the old guys, the old crotchety guys?
just the work the way they built their cabinets is not like how a lot of modern cabinet makers build cabinets today. So just everything was heavy going upstairs. It was just sort of like it was a lot. And I was at the time I was still, I did a lot of 3D printing, which got me into CAD. So I was doing a lot of CAD work. And the minute you start 3D printing, you're like, oh, it'd be cool to be machining. So there ended up being I don't know, I guess you'd call it like a digital fabrication studio, but a company that ended up being like 10 minutes from me was hiring for a fabricator, but they were a very CNC focused business. So they were doing a ton of commercial work, a lot of architectural millwork, a lot of like work in the high end art world and, retail prop stuff, like just a really cool mix of materials and different industries and but very CNC focused business. So I went in there as a fabricator and they were just getting into Fusion 360 and switching over from Rhino. And I had 2 years in Fusion. So they had gotten one job. It was the biggest job they ever had. And they were slammed in they needed someone to be able to, help out with the programming and understand the whole like, sequence of getting just a job out the door. So I slid into that spot pretty quick, and then before I knew it, I was just like head down programming, machining, but all wood for just all the time. So did that for a while, then just went totally down the rabbit hole of machining and listening to I've been a huge fan of Within Tolerance and a lot of the machining podcasts, and that got me like into the idea that I wanted to get out of the kind of woodworking millwork world and get into manufacturing and start cutting metal. So after about 2 years there, I ended up with a guy I worked with at that shop. We ended up kind of leaving, probably a couple weeks apart from each other and bought a machine and got into a space and started going. And so that was, it's kind of the story of how I got into it.
Hey, if you're responsible for setting direction in your company, you already know manufacturing isn't standing still. From global trade and geopolitics to industrial AI and advanced automation, the forces reshaping our industry are accelerating, and they're redefining competitiveness and risk in real time. That's why MFG 2026 matters. March 10th through the 12th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, industry leaders are coming together for high-level conversations designed specifically for executives who need to think several moves ahead. If you're driving growth and shaping strategy, this is the room you want to be in. To learn more, go to amtonline.org, navigate to events, and you'll find MFG 2026 there. It's time to lead with confidence.
When did you buy that machine and go into your own metalworking business?
I got the machine. I think it was like the tail end of 2023. That's when I signed a small, lease in an industrial park and got that machine. And then it was probably wasn't until like March that was a real shop with, power and a running machine and an air compressor.
March of 24. So just less than 2 years ago.
Yeah. I
Got it.
just re-signed my lease for this will be my 3rd year.
Okay.
Nice.
It's awesome.
Very cool. I love that. Is your dad named John?
Yeah. John Peters.
Longview.
Yeah.
That is a legit following. Very cool. Yeah, I just found his channel here as you were talking. I'm like, this must be the guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say we need to plug it real quick, but
Yeah, John Peters, Longview Woodworking, over 1 million subscribers. That's really cool.
1 million subscribers, did you say?
1 million subscribers.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the first guys. I think he's been doing it for a decade and a half.
I love woodworking. I'm sure I've come across some of his stuff. I'll need to go look at it when we're done here.
It's funny, my dad was a carpenter, not furniture building, more of like a house carpenter when I was young. And that's partly how I really, got into working with my hands. Again, he wasn't doing metalworking, but there's definitely some kind of similarity there. Like you get sort of the work with your hands, blue collar kind of bug from a parent, and then that sort of leads you into another path. In this case, precision machining. So yeah, I can totally relate to that story. It's very cool. That's been your journey. When you got that first machine, how did you then start going out and finding actual machining jobs, contract manufacturing jobs to work on, or were you doing your own products? Or just explain a little bit about what you kept that machine busy with and how you did that.
It was crazy. There was really there was like no plan of how to find work, and it was kind of like if you don't have any background in engineering or manufacturing, it's kind of hard to identify the businesses when you're new that would need manufacturing. The first thing that really helped us out was our power provider here in New Jersey is Jersey Central Power and Lighting. They actually came into the shop I was working at while I was kind of, I was finishing up a job there, and it was a pretty big job, so I wasn't going to leave them hanging. But the understanding was with my employer at the time that I was going to get this job out the door for them, and then I was going to, leave right after. While I was doing that, these linemen from Jersey Central Power and Lighting came into this business because it was historically a metal shop, and they were like, "Hey, is this like still a metal shop? Can you guys make bus bars?" And one of the guys at the time was like, "Oh, go talk to that guy. He's, starting a machine shop. Like he might be able to help you." And that was a lot of our first couple jobs, that paid the rent and kept us going, was just like making a ton of bus bars and just, odd and ends, bending pipe, doing whatever kind of odd jobs we could do for Jersey Central Power and Lighting. And it was kind of a huge customer to have at the time. I've done some work for them since. It's off and on, but that was like the first one. And then it was just like, I used to just call so many people in the beginning and just try to do work for anybody. And then I leveraged a lot of my connections from the sort of high-end millwork world of like, do you need brass accident work? Do you need hardware? Templates, anything I can get my hands on.
That's scrappy. I like it. That's very serendipitous that these guys just walked into the building looking for bus bars. I love that story.
It was like, they were perfect parts for us because they were just, pieces of copper with holes in them, and we would bend them. We called it a bender. I had a business partner, Michael, at the time, and he was with me for about 6 months, and he just wasn't into the idea of having a business and the stress of the overhead. So I ended up we're still great friends to this day, but I ended up just kind of proceeding on solo as the 100% owner. But yeah, those first couple jobs, we would just do anything we could get our hands on pretty much.
Yep. That kind of sounds like my shop story. And interestingly enough, a couple of the guys or one in particular that I have in mind that we started with, just decided that entrepreneurship wasn't his thing. The stress level, the uncertainty, whatever it might be. So he went off and got a regular job doing machining at a much bigger company, and we're still dear friends to this day, but it's just not for everybody. Yeah. And that's totally okay.
When you look at the MBA series, what did we kick it off with, right? The mindset of an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You got to love a little bit of that stress almost, right? I mean, I know I thrive off some of it, and I think everybody does.
You got to like the chase. Like for me, I actually enjoy quoting the job. I like having the relationship with the customer. I like the pursuit of money in the absence of like a formal employer. I still work full time, and I love that because I have all my security, but I really do love the business aspect of it as much as I do machining. And I think you have to have that because so much of what I do, my business probably, I was just telling these guys, my business probably takes, anywhere from, 30 to 40 hours of my time a week. And so much of that is not machining. It's quoting, it's calling people, it's following up, it's purchasing. And if you don't like to do that, then you shouldn't start shop.
Yeah, right.
That's the quote of the whole show. If you don't like doing that, you shouldn't start a shop.
I mean, we talked about that a lot with the Machine Shop MBA series. Like, a lot of times people are a great machinist and then they're like, oh, I should start a company. Like, well, I don't like doing any of the company stuff.
Right.
That's like, well, then you should just be a great machinist.
Right.
Yeah. Go work at a crazy shop with wild equipment and be able to go home at the end of the day and not carry it,
Walter, you just brought up, so you have your shop and you also work for another shop, right?
Yeah.
How has that been? Are they, I mean, I assume they're knowledgeable of it and I would assume supportive.
Are you getting in trouble right now?
Yeah.
No. I work for a shop that is very, they're a very defense focused, business. And they do a lot of like, they do a lot of machining there, but they also do a ton of fabrication. They do a ton of welding. They do painting. They do a lot of assembly work. And I just don't think they view me remotely as a threat because I could, you could never do what they do, one person. And when I met them as a company I'd always known about, but I always wanted to work for. And right when I started my business, maybe a couple months in, or maybe a couple weeks in, I got a call from a guy that his shop is Bender Precision Machining. He had come out of that shop and he just gave me a call one day randomly. He was like, "Hey man, I hear you're just getting started. I got a couple jobs for you. Would love to meet you, whatever." So what me and him ended up working a lot together. When I got my first like big job, he did half of it because I didn't have the travels for it in my mill. And when I was kind of looking, he was sort of a mentor in my first year there because I bought my CNC mill. I'd never seen a CNC mill until I went and looked at mine to go buy it. So I was, first time tramming in a vise, first time running a tap, like all, no background. So that guy was a huge help to me. We're really good friends. And when last year January rolled around, I had experienced my first January slowdown, and I was just already kind of thinking like, I got to go be around guys like this guy Dan all day. Like the effect of being around a guy like guys like that all day, my progress would be so much faster. So I talked to him, and I was like, "Hey, I'm trying to maybe go work somewhere. Would you know any places?" And he was like, "Oh, these people would probably like to have you." And when I first talked to my employers, they were just like, "Oh, that's awesome. That shows great initiative." They're on their second generation of ownership, and they've got some younger people in the kind of business admin side of it. And I think they're just probably more so than anything, really happy to see a young person that's got real enthusiasm towards manufacturing. And it's not like there's people lining up to work at machine shops, so it's like, you only have so many options.
Has there been an instance where they've had you run anything at your shop that they didn't have capacity for?
I don't think they know. I try to keep it really low profile. I think they probably think that I'm having more fun than I am just like running a business, like I don't think they probably know they probably think I'm doing a lot less work than I'm doing.
Yeah, they don't realize he did like 3 million in sales last year.
He didn't either, actually.
That's great revenue per machine.
Yeah, per full-time employee.
Yeah, one employee.
It is just you, right, Walter? It's just you.
Yeah.
And is it one machine tool?
Yeah, I got a brother, TC, and I got a manual lathe and TIG welder, a couple of support tools, inspection stuff.
So cool. Did you go find a place? Do you have your own space for it, or is it one of those garage things?
Well, it's basically the size of a garage, but I rent a garage in a small little industrial park. That's I say garage, it's just one of their smaller units, about 500 square feet. And I brought my own. They do have three phase in that building, but not in that unit. So I brought my own phase converter in. So it's a small little shop, but it works well, and it's low overhead is everything when you're getting started.
And Walter, how have you funded so far? Just yourself? I mean, you just bootstrapping this as you go?
Yeah, basically, I had an initial cash input with my business partner at the time. I think collectively we probably put it was probably by the time it was all said and done, less than $30,000 to get everything in there and kind of get going.
Is that including the machine tool?
Yeah, it's everything. Machine tool, down payment, renovations, electrical work. And then it was probably like, after honestly, I think like 4 or 5 months, there was no more personal cash input into the business. And I was just profitable in the second year here. So I've got no debt. The business is profiting, and just plugging along.
Ned, did you do a machine lease or did you buy a used inexpensive machine?
No, the machine was only $6,500. So between us, it wasn't really that bad, and we just bought it cash, and we just own it outright.
Probably spent that much to move it and get it hooked up.
Yeah, yeah, it was. To move it wasn't too bad, but it's just that's the way to go. I mean, I just like is 60. You spend 10 grand on a machine, you can make great parts on an old machine. And I think it's better to start with an older machine, because you really got to work around things, and having to work around code limitations, or spindle speeds or whatever. It's just going to make you better in the long run, and you're not going to carry the stress of having a hefty machine payment on your back.
We talk about that all the time. We see people who buy really expensive equipment and use like half of the working envelope or half of the features that they paid for. And I totally agree with what you just said. Like, buy something that when you upgrade, it's because you needed that upgrade. You needed every additional feature that you paid for, and then continue to scale it from there, rather than go, spend $1 million on a brand new machine tool that you're going to use 10% of.
Yeah, and I know guys here that buy, machines from the early 2000s, and they run circles around other guys that have brand new machines, and
Yeah.
they own the machine outright, and if anything happens, it doesn't owe them anything. And I think that's really a great way to start.
Did you have any like financial scary times or uncertainty or mistakes early on that really stressed you out, or because you kind of bootstrapped it and you were really frugal with how you started your business, was it intentionally low stress?
No, it's intentionally low stress. Like my monthly, what I have to make every month is probably, what an average job is, that comp, so if I get it just like after 1.5 jobs every month, I know I'm covered. The only scary thing would be like, the only times I get freaked out is like if I got a lot of deposits that I've collected, and I've spent a lot of the cash on material or tooling, and I've the money spent. I'm always just like, man, I hope nothing happens. I hope I don't lose power or whatever.
Just cash flow issues.
Yeah, that's the only time where I'm just sort of biting my nails. I'm like, all right, let's just get the work out the door and get paid and recoup. But you just never get farther out than you can come back from. Is my philosophy towards kind of everything.
And is your plan, Walter, to kind of grow the business to the point where you don't need that full-time day job, and ultimately just be full-time in the business itself, or is this always a side gig?
I think no, I want the shop to be a full-time thing, and honestly, I'm at a point now where it's really looking like if I could probably do it right now and be okay. But for me, it's a lot of like I love the I just love the educational aspect of working at a shop. And the shop I work at now is such a high mix of, we make such a different array of parts from different materials, different sizes, different strategies, that I look at it like, going to school. almost. And, it's just, you're meeting people. It's so important to meet people in the industry. And 'cause it's such a local niche industry that you learn really quickly. Everyone really knows each other. So I want to have a reputation as a guy in the area that can get it done. And, I just want to keep learning. And I think that I've probably got a couple more. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I'm really happy with where my you know where everything is right now. The only downside is I work all the time, but it's the time to do it. And I do like doing it.
Do you have, Walter, do you have a vision of, I mean, what is your vision 10 years from now your shop looks like? Is it half dozen machines and a few employees? Is it 100 spindles? Is it?
No, I really, so like my father's got a really awesome shop in a detached building in his house. My one of my really good friends who's a couple years older than me, who's got a business in a machining business in more of the routing world of doing like props and retail work. He's got a exterior building. I just love that low overhead business model. And I think with the way things are going with automation, I just, my goal in the next 10 years is to be a homeowner, have some kind of an exterior building and do just high end specialty stuff and have 3 or 4 machines that I really like working on. And if I want to walk away for a couple days, having that ability to, I really just, I don't know what it is. I don't think I want to be financially responsible for someone and be an employer. I think I'm more so just, I love making parts and I love business and I love working on machines. And if I can just do that in a way that, sort of intellectually stimulates me and I also have time and balance to do other things, that's, that'll be good enough for me.
So awesome, Walter. We had an episode. So you may not know this, but we all have our own podcast in addition to this flagship MakingChips podcast. And the one I run is called Lights Out, and it's all about automation. And we had one of our earlier episodes is with a shop owner named Ryan Bankel, and it's about time freedom. And as I hear you talk, that's what I can tell you're looking for. And there's 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5, something like that. And their whole thing is, we're not going to get a bigger building. We're just going to automate everything in here. We're going to run every single thing we can lights out, and we're going to have the most effective small building. And that's as big as we're going to get. And if we do that, we're going to be super profitable. And we're all going to be able to take time off and go, leave while our machines run. Exactly. So I highly, you would love that episode. You should check that out. It's really
I
good.
will. And I think I have listened to Lights Out. So I'll have to go back, but yeah, like I did this last year in 2025, I did a run of 1,000 parts in my shop, which is kind of a lot for one guy, one spindle. You think like, okay, there's maybe an opportunity cost there. Like it was really interesting experience, like making 1,000 or something as one person. And, I look back at that, I'm like, that was pretty cool. I eventually I'd love to have 1,000, parts being made and not be so involved with it and maybe have that on go out and buy a used Brother Speedio and do some high density work holding or some automation and have really nice, a nice, run of 1,000 or 500 and have those going all the time and then work on the high complexity one-offs during the day. That's kind of where I want to.
Yep.
That's like basically every episode of Lights Out is high density work holding, automate the loading and unloading, and relax while you're getting paid.
Yeah, we need to make sure to drop that Ryan's show in the show notes, because Walter, you would love that episode, because that's exactly what he's built. He has a few employees helping him as well, but yeah, it's a pretty cool story.
They run it like a band, like they're all just like in a band together having fun, not like some crazy corporate ladder climbing business where they're trying to conquer the world.
I love business and I love, but like I don't want to do the admins. I never want to have to like write a policy on how we deal with like late. Like I just don't want to put my time in, so
life's too short to make HR policies.
Yeah, like I just
that's the tagline.
Well, Paul, if people showed up on time, we wouldn't have to do that.
Oh, that's a good point. Touche.
Walter, are you excited to write up your first edition of the employee handbook?
Yeah. That's like all the stuff I'm like trying to avoid. I just want to, I just want to do good work and, just do cool jobs and have fun.
Walter, you should totally get on ChatGPT and ask it to write a employee handbook for me as the owner and the only employee.
That's right.
Yeah, there we go.
I say I'm also getting elements of Michael King from this conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's going to be such a great episode.
Yeah. Exploring lights, exploring automation and time for family, and just really building a lifestyle business that serves the life that you want to create.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
I love that. So let's talk about, since you're not going to recruit any employees, how about family members? What's the plan with that? Is your goal to get married and have a bunch of kids and to have a shop connected to your house that pays for all of them, or what?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'll definitely I want to have a family and, get married all in time. And the whole thing I always think about is like, even like last week I had some electrical work done. It was $1,000 to do this electrical work. And, it really bugs me to do any kind of capital investment on a place I don't own, so I don't own my shop. I rent it and I look over my books. It's like since I've been in there, it's probably somewhere around $40,000 of rent and utilities and business internet. And you never get that back. And I'd rather have that equity build in a home, and just the commute, I drive 50 miles a day between both jobs, and I want to get away from that one day and just be able to like walk out the door and be like, I'm going to run a couple parts, and I'm going to set these up to run overnight, and then when I come back in the morning, these are done.
So for all the young ladies listening, there's nothing more attractive than a successful machinist. So you can find Walter on his LinkedIn. That's so good.
That's awesome.
In manufacturing, growth isn't accidental, it's engineered. But a lot of suppliers are still building their pipeline on outdated lists, inconsistent follow-up, and hope-based marketing, hoping their website will somehow bring in leads. Gabe Draper, the founder of Factor, knows that struggle. Years ago, he ran a shop that went bankrupt, not because of quality, but because he didn't have a steady way to generate new opportunities. That experience is what led him to build Factor. Factor helps suppliers create consistent sales opportunities by combining targeted outreach with marketing that puts you in front of the right buyers. Their team finds the right companies, starts real conversations, and sets qualified meetings. So if your pipeline swings with referrals or seasonality, Factor brings a system that puts you back in control. And for listeners of this show, Factor is offering a free custom report that highlights the best opportunities in your industry, plus a list of real companies that match what you do. Request yours at factormfg.com/chips. That's facturmfg.com/chips.
So you mentioned your dad and his YouTube following, and he's a craftsman himself. Maybe it's wood instead of metal, but a pretty big mentor to you, would you say? And how does this is kind of unique. Not a lot of young machining folks would say like, yeah, my dad has 1 million YouTube subscribers. So
Right.
like, that's pretty awesome. And what do you think about all of that? And how will that influence how you grow your business?
I think it's had a lot of influence on the way I grow my business because my dad's got a great business in the fact that he really has no overhead, and I've sort of watched him he's got an awesome, very balanced lifestyle. He's got a really cool job, and he gets to put his time where he wants to for the most part every day. He's super into mountain biking, really into working out, and he's been able to kind of do that my whole life as a kid into a young adult. I think you see that and you're like, that's a really, I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to like, where do you want to put your time? I've always looked at that. I'm like, that is time really well spent. It's building something that's sustainable and being able to kind of do what you want at the end of the day. So we have a lot of fun talking about projects and just, going back and forth about business. We have a podcast together with another guy, Jeff Krug, who owns a cabinet shop, and I've worked for Jeff. And my father has another combined YouTube channel with Jeff, where it's kind of like a modern take on This Old House. If you guys have ever seen that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But so we have a podcast that we just started called the Long View, and it's a kind of a combination of like we're all maybe 15 years apart. So it's kind of an interesting, conversation, and we're all, working through our businesses, and, slightly different, but still similar.
That's so cool. I really like that. So what that like the whole content marketing element of your family is really interesting.
Yeah.
You've got a podcast that you do with your dad. He's got this YouTube channel. What's the origin of all of that?
Of what specifically?
Just like the creating content, building an audience and building a following and putting content out there all the time. Like, how did that all start?
With him, or just?
Yeah, with him, and then you and him doing it together on the podcast.
I think he was always in business for himself. He's a really actually pretty successful painter, and so he had an art gallery. And we're kind of, we live in Monmouth County, New Jersey. Here, it's the kind of spot where you can't have an art gallery and do well with it, because you got a lot of people coming over from the city and whatnot. So he always had that kind of creative side. I think he built a table once and wanted to show a family member, so he filmed it. He was always into photo and video too, digital, pretty early to get into digital stuff. And I think he just put a video online and it got traction, and he was like, oh, there might be something here. And that was, years and years ago, where like, I think today there might be less and less of that, because it's a lot more saturated, but, that's how he got into it. And then, yeah, he's been at it for a while, just staying consistent. And then the podcast is funny. We actually, I bought a manual lathe at the end of this year, just because it was up for sale, local, and cheap, and I just wanted to go grab it because it was such a utility factor to have a manual lathe. And he and that guy Jeff, who were on the podcast with, came and helped me get it, and he filmed it, made a video on it, and at the end he's like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. Maybe we should do a podcast together."
Seems like a cool guy. Your dad seems like my kind of guy. I actually did paintings before I got into this world, and yeah, just like really creative guy. So, any other mentors you would say? I mean, you mentioned a few, but any other mentors that impacted your decision to want to build this future business, this one man band that allows you to have the freedom to live how you want long term?
I think just the people I've met along the way. I mean, I've had a lot of, I'm 26, and I've had a handful of jobs now, and I've been really lucky to just meet some really cool people along the way that are really talented, whether they're cabinet makers, finishers, like painters, guys in metalworking, guys in machining. And I think it's just that goes back to, like, the value of having a job, maybe even if it's holding you back temporarily. It's the fact that you're getting out to the world, and you're meeting people and talking to people. And I've just been lucky to be in those situations and, meet those people.
Walter, are you now, or do you see, you talked about automation. What other type of systems or software, AI, whatever, do you see that you either are using or will as you kind of continue to grow?
I use ChatGPT a lot just to think, and, because I don't work with anyone when I'm working in my shop. So I'll just sort of have a conversation with it. A lot of times it's just, like, I use it a lot for quoting, or, just I use a lot of the AI models for quoting. And it might even be something like, hey, I'm buying a piece of 12-foot aluminum, and I'm going to lose an 1/8 inch to the kerf of the saw blade every time I cut it. How many pieces do I need to make a 30-part order, with this percentage of overage or whatever? I just use it to think. That's been really wildly helpful. And as far as just like process and stuff, my machine's really old, so there's a lot of stuff that I have to convince it to do, as far as like breaking up programs and modeling surfaces to sort of trick it to doing certain pieces of geometry. So I think that sometimes limits me in terms of like having a lot of cam automation, because I don't think I could use it right now for the equipment I have. I definitely am very interested and open to it when I do have that equipment. But I think more so where I'm seeing just leaps in my productivity is just trying to get better at, like, trying to get things, like, if a job comes in, trying to get the material ordered like soon and get the tools in, and just learning how to purchase has been a huge part of it for me. And just knowing like how to sort of keep myself always set up for the next task, and just try to use my time the best that I can.
Yeah. I mean, you just mentioned again, like you hit limitations with your machine, and then when you upgrade, you'll have all the reasons to upgrade. You wouldn't have started with a machine that you're not using. So I love that. And then once you upgrade, it'll unlock all of this other technology that you can implement because you got a newer, more modern piece of equipment. So
Yeah, well, it's like hard because I go and I use nice machines all day. Not that my brother isn't nice, but I, use machines that just don't really fight you as far as getting work done, and then it's a little tougher when I get to my place.
It's interesting you talk about the AI cam. I mean, we're all good friends with Al Whatmo and
yeah,
very familiar with Cloud NC, and I mean there's a lot going on there, and I mean I don't know where that's going to go over the next couple of years, but it's going to be pretty freaking impressive. I have a feeling. I mean, what it's already doing is shocking.
Yeah, I think it's going to be huge. I was just talking to someone the other day, one of the guys I work with, that was like, we were just talking about how, once you get going, programming is like really not that hard. It's so much of like goes into your setup and building the rigidity in your setup. And if you really break down programming, it's like, it's a lot of selection, just selecting things. And if you got your tools dialed and your feeds and speeds dialed, like it really comes down to just selections on the computer. And I'm happy to offload that. I don't need to go and select holes and contours. If something can get me 70% of the way there, and I just can do the real thinking to get it over the top to where it needs to be, and it allows me to get more work done, I'm more than happy to do that.
that's awesome. So the sales and marketing guy has a sales and marketing question for you. As a one man band, what's going to be your strategy to make sure your one or two or three machines that you end up with are full of work? Is it going to be? I imagine like actually. Let me ask this question: is your dad ever searching for work, or is his million subscriber audience just keeping him as busy as he could ever imagine?
Yeah, they keep him busy, and I've not. We had one product where we made like a chisel mallet like a year and a half ago. We sold like 40 of them, and we just split it down the middle. He built the handle. I made the head out of brass, and that was cool. But there's not really been, I've gotten emails from guys that watch him. They're like, "Hey man, I watch your dad. Like, what do you think about doing this?" And it's really never, been work worth pursuing. I've just, for me, it's, I actually get a lot of my work on Google. So just having, if I do work for someone, I just, I do a good job. I really try to say, hey, give me a Google review, and just try to rank high in Google. And, I get a lot of phone calls. So I do no outward sales at all. So I don't really do any cold calling now. And the work just seems to come in, and it's like anything, you do work you just never know who's on the other end of the phone. Like I've had situations where you get a call from someone, you don't really know what the job's going to be, but then they give you this awesome job and they connect you to three other people, and I've kind of had that sort of experience, but it's been a lot of Google for me more so than anything.
Yeah, you have 14 5-star reviews, it looks like.
Yeah.
That's a lot more than most machine shops that have been around for decades. That's actually awesome.
Yeah, we've been around for 50, and I bet we don't have two. I mean, it's
Well, I'm going to go give you one, Mike.
thank you.
I got a job today from they're like a medical device manufacturer kind of local to me. And they came in through the RFQ of the website. And it's definitely because they needed something and they just probably typed in machine shop near me, and just ranking on Google. They probably have no idea that I'm just a guy in a garage, but it's like that's where you really have to leverage the internet.
Yeah, and honestly, if you deliver them good parts when they need them, they don't care if you're just a guy in the garage, probably.
Yeah, well, it's always so funny. Like I've had like big, 50, 60 person companies where I'll do like 2 or 3 jobs for them. We'll have a kind of a rapport on email or over the phone. And then they'll come by to pick something up, and they're just like, this is not what I thought this was going to be at all. It's just me in a room with a machine. But they're usually like, wow, that's awesome, man. Good for you. We're going to try to do whatever we can for you, and it's been good.
Yeah, we had that on an episode we just recorded recently, and 2 brothers that are young, and same thing. Like, oh my gosh, I thought you guys were like in your 40s. And they show up and see him in person for the very first time.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
You now have another review, Walter. I just did that while we were talking. So
Thanks, dude. Appreciate it.
That's great.
Walter, it's funny. I pulled up your dad's YouTube channel, and it just something seemed very familiar to me. And I went to his most popular video, and it's about building a concrete pad, like 9 million views. And I have watched that video. I saw like on the bottom, you see a little red line if you watch the whole thing. I'm like, no wonder that sounds familiar. I had to build a concrete pad on the side of my house like 5 years ago, and I totally watched that video on how to build that pad. So
yeah, it's crazy because my brother's in that video and my sister, I think, is, and they're way younger. It's like that's the kind of the cool thing. It's like you just see like it's a great way to capture time. Cool to go back and watch those.
That's awesome.
Well, that's cool. I'll just let you know what I said here as we wrap up. I said, this guy has the right stuff. I enjoyed hosting him on the MakingChips podcast. Excited to see how his business grows. So I'm sure I speak for all of us. But
yeah, absolutely.
And I love, like, we have such a mix of young entrepreneurs on MakingChips, and I love how not everyone is trying to conquer the world and grow the biggest shop with 6,000 employees. I think it's really attractive to have a lifestyle-oriented business that allows you to, sleep and relax. So I think that's great.
I think that often when I'm not sleeping.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, growing a bigger business comes with headaches that sometimes are just not worth the juice, not worth the squeeze, as they say, right? So
yeah, well, the one shop I worked at before leaving, they had tremendous overhead. They didn't own the building, and I could feel it was a husband and wife that owned the company. The wife has since left, but I could feel the stress from that when it would be the end of the month, and I was just like, I never want to take that on, And that's the cool thing. You make parts, you make things that are small. You don't have to have a huge space. I mean, most of my stuff goes out into the mail. I do work for a guy in Chicago pretty regularly. And that's the beautiful thing. You can have low overhead, make things that are small and put them in the mail.
That's awesome. Paul, tell me about your trip to Italy.
I went there with the NTMA and we got to tour SMW Autoblok, 2 different facilities. Absolutely blew me away. World-class, enormous places. I can't even count how many machines there were, but so much automation. One of the most incredible takeaways for me was the breadth of what they made. I did not know they made so many work-holding products and automation products. And I loved watching a big chuck machine a little chuck. So they were machining chucks in huge lathes. I thought that was super fun.
Yeah, you introduced them to me after you came back, and they've been to my shop. And the ideas they have to like breathe new life into some of my machines and the tools and the jobs that we're running was just shocking.
And then one of the coolest things is we're bringing this new automated pallet delivery system, the Hennig workflow, to market. And guess what the interface is? It's SMW 0-point locators. It's really sweet.
We're getting ready to get some of those.
So how do people find SMW Autoblok to look through that massive catalog of products?
It's SMW Autoblok, BLOK.com.
Yeah, get rid of that C. SMW Autoblok, BLOK.com. Well, if you ever do want to come out to Chicago, you'll be close to me. Come and visit. Have a drink at the Boring Bar.
For sure.
Super cool. Well, let's wrap this up, guys. It was great to have Walter on and hear his story. I really resonate with the creativity in his family and how they run their business. I think it's awesome. Mm-hmm. More people need to be relaxed enough to do a painting or make a cool video. Or I'm even looking at like some steampunk hats and some cool chess pieces and stuff on his on the images on his Google profile. It's pretty sweet. So, Walter, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
I don't know if you've heard this before, but we end every episode the same way. And it's if you're not making chips,
you're not making money.
Bam.